Namaste. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our Thursday night Anamkara meditation program. With all my heart, with all my love, I welcome you to our program this evening. So glad you're with us, and we get to dive into, interestingly, the ocean of consciousness, because that's what this is all about. And what we're going to do tonight, I was going to talk a bit about one of the foundational texts that comes out of the Kashmir Shaivite tradition. And you'll know I've often spoke about Kashmir Shaivism, and as in my opinion, humble opinion, the highest flowering of the wisdom of the non-dual traditions of India, and grew out of this area of Kashmir in India. That was also very interesting because it was kind of a melting pot for also Buddhism, Sufism, and Shaivism. And so you can see strands of the influence of Kashmir Shaivism in these other traditions, especially in Tibetan Buddhism, because Guru Rinpoche, Guru Padmasambhava, had spent time in Kashmir, was from Kashmir before he was invited to go to Tibet and bring the tantric traditions and teachings with him. So there's this interplay between these traditions that are all aimed at knowing the highest. And we know that on that highest level, well, that's unity consciousness. That's the oneness. And yes, you know, the Buddhist tradition can talk about that in certain ways that carries the flavor of a Buddhist perspective. Kashmir Shaivism carries its perspective, Sufism its perspective. But the peak, that's beyond perspectives. So all these philosophies, traditions, texts, they're all pointing beyond themselves. So we want to keep that in mind even when we're reading something like the Pratyabhijnahrdayam. And the Pratyabhijnahrdayam is a text, a set of sutras from, about 1,000, 1,100 years ago. And it is in the same sort of class of literature as the Shiva Sutras, the Vijnana Bhairava, the Spandakarakas, and the Pratyabhijnahrdayam, and they're all explications on the sublime nature of reality. Sublime because it is always in unity with the infinite, the one. And so Pratyabhijnahrdayam, that's talking about, that word means the heart of the doctrine of self-recognition. Because it's all about recognizing the self as everywhere. It's pointing to the fact that that is the foundation of reality. Our ordinary mind looks at that sublime, divine, all-pervading oneness. It looks at it through the eyes of a differentiating instrument. That's the mind. It differentiates things. That's its job, is to break up unity into little pieces so that little pieces can be known. But the unity is never really broken. That's what these traditions keep aiming at, transforming our view so we get to know that directly. Because the yogis were all about, we need to have the direct experience of that. It's not about just having a great philosophy that points to the highest and points to unity consciousness. It's nice, but we want to taste that. We want to know that. We want to live in that. And really that's what the great sages, saints of these traditions, they were dedicated, 100% to knowing the highest, to becoming immersed in that, knowing it directly, knowing it without doubt. And then having become that deeply immersed, they tried to translate it into words for others. Buddha did it in his way. And Kshemaraja and Abhinavagupta, great Kashmir Shaivites, did it in their way. So when we're talking about what I'll be speaking of, these sutras from the Pratyabhijnahrdayam, it contains that understanding of what that unity is. And we saw it when I was talking a while back from the Shiva Sutras. The same, because they're out of the same tradition. And it makes it very clear, all there is Shiva. All there is consciousness. Shiva just means the auspicious one, and it means the totality of consciousness and all that is, all that's become, all that hasn't become, everything, literally beyond words. And so when we looked at the Shiva Sutras, the first Shiva Sutra said Chaitanya Atman, the self is consciousness. And so it's right away stating that's the nature, the ground of existence of reality is consciousness. Not a being that has definition, that has forms. Those are things that the consciousness assumes to be relatable for this mind that is a form and thus relates to form. But the sages and saints, the yogis, the mystics, they know that's a little stopping off place along the way. We want to go beyond all of that. But we also want to get a sense of what's the breadth, what's the expanse of the nature of this reality and how it is, because it has practical import for how we meditate, how we look at the phenomenon of mind, how we look at life. And so these texts also have that kind of component to it, not just the lofty vision, but they can help inform our day-to-day experience and become part of practice. Because it's really, as yogis, as seekers, as meditators, it's the practice and the fruits of practice that we focus our attention on. And in the first sutra of the Pratyabhijnahrdayam, it says very clearly, it says, Chitti creates the universe of her own free will. Chitti is Shakti, consciousness, Chit Shakti. That's the consciousness that is Shiva. We call them as if there's two separate things, Shiva and Shakti. There's not. That's just the mind trying to grasp something that is so enormous. It goes, let me break it into two. There's one, but we can talk about Shiva, the auspicious one, by his will, creates all that is. Oh, let's call that will Shakti. And because we see what gives birth to forms in this world, well, it's always the feminine. So when we look at the archetypes of what this highest understanding is, you see that Shakti as Chit Shakti, as Kali, as Ma, as Tarama, the divine feminine is what gives birth to form, and also, it gives birth in this world to selfless love, seeking to reduce and eliminate suffering. That these are qualities of that infinite aspect, dimension of what our true nature is. So right away, the Pratyabhijnahrdayam is saying, Chitti creates the universe of her own free will. Wasn't forced to do it, right? This wasn't a mistake. This is her creativity is so boundless. It's the entire universe. I mean, the entire universe, all galaxies, all dimensions. We think about a multiverse, all that as well, all the unfolding of her creativity. That's how expansive. Now, when we say her, guess what? We're talking about you. We're talking about you and me and everybody else. This is our fundamental, essential nature. Why don't we know that? Because we're identified with the mind. We're identified with one of the forms she created and endowed with limited consciousness that then gets to know what that form is. So it says, again, coming back to the Pratyabhijnahrdayam, in the second sutra it says, by the power of her own will alone, she unfolds the universe upon her own screen. So not only does she create the entire universe, there's no other place. There's no duality there. There's not her and a place to create. There's all her. So it all unfolds on the screen of her own being, her own infinite nature, There's no duality here at all. Nothing hinted at, nothing implied, no duality. All of creativity, all of creation, all of the creator, that's one. And it's consciousness, right? Chaitanya Atman, consciousness. It's the nature of Chitti, Chit Shakti, the consciousness, the power of consciousness. So it has the power to know its own infinitude. That's why we can come to know it, is because its nature is knowing, is the very knowing. In fact, the limited knowing of the mind is like a spark of that. The mind can know a little, it can't know the infinitude. But the boundless one, of course it can know that. It's its own self. That's all there is its own self. So that's the perspective that really the practices are aimed at drawing us more and more into the direct experience of it. First, by detaching and going inward through meditative practices, but ultimately, the highest samadhi is called sahaja samadhi. It's living samadhi. It's to be in that state and see everything, the good, the bad, the ugly, see it and see both its divine nature as well as its limited contracted nature. And sometimes those limited contracted forms, well, they need to be, segregated, they need to be, transformed, they need to be dealt with appropriately. But even while seeing their essence, it's all the divine. It's all the one. So that we're able to then live and act on multiple levels and experience that and see that. And see what's appropriate to the level of differentiation and separation. That's different from the levels of unity consciousness. The unity consciousness, well, that's different from what we have to do on a practical level, where this body is separate from that wall and it can't walk into it. That's then also informing our experience. All the different levels, nothing left out, nothing shut off. It's an additive, it's a process of addition. That's why it's the recognition. This is the heart of the doctrine of self-recognition. You don't have to produce this. You don't have to create unity consciousness. It already exists. We come to recognize it and live from that. And the Pratyabhijnahrdayam goes on to say that Chitti, this Shakti, this consciousness herself, descending from this realm of pure, infinite, boundless knowing consciousness, becomes the mind and contracts in accordance with the objects perceived, so that ordinary mind is always connected to objects. There's subject and object, subject and object. Even in dreams, there's a subject and an object. Even in deep sleep, if we enter that state more consciously, as in meditation practices can open up, we can see there's the sleeping subject, and the object of its awareness is nothingness. So that's why the yogis described the deep sleep state as the continuous awareness of nothingness. There's still a subject-object split because it's still in the realm of duality, as are dreams, as is the waking state. The transcendent state, the living state of meditation, the turiya state, is what transcends and subsumes. That goes beyond, exists beyond. There's no going. It's already there. And embraces and sees and knows all on the level of differentiation as well. So we're talking about a state of consciousness that is literally unimaginable. We can get a flavor from it. We can read various texts. We can read, poets, saints, and mystics of every tradition that help us to get the flavor of what it is to know that, to live in that state. But we have to know it ourselves. We have to do the practices to get free of the mind, to then be able to experience what that expansiveness is. And ultimately, it's seen as an act of grace, because just as it's Chit Shakti that creates the limited forms, that creates the consciousness, that creates subject-object split, it is that Shakti alone that in the end removes that veil, that sense of duality. And then could play with, when is it on, when is it off? When is it on, when is it off? Even when it's on, it never forgets. Forgetting belongs to the limited mind, not to your infinite self. Your infinite self, your divine self, has never forgotten anything about its unity, who you are, what the truth of who you are, what the truth of all beings are. The divine. This is the unfolding of that. So by helping ourselves to get attuned to that, even hearing that that's possible, even hearing these levels of understanding and sublime traditions, helps to expand the ordinary mind. So it can start to let go of it's just basic assumptions that just ordinary reality and all its contracted states of being averse to this, being attracted by that, being repulsed by something else. It's not stuck there. Until we start to get a sense that, oh, others have done this, have gone beyond. That's Buddha. Go beyond. Gate, paragate, parasamgate, bodhisvaha. Gone beyond. Completely beyond. That means completely beyond all the concepts, all the descriptions, all the Sanskrit names, all the everything. All that's gone. Those are all the fingers pointing at the moon, trying to get the mind to at least look in the right direction. Because what we have to work with in sadhana practice is attention, is consciousness. What do we attend to? What's the nature of the attention that we give to something? What's it conditioned by? What's our conditioned sense of self and limitations that we wear like a robe that we put on as soon as we get up in the morning and, peel off at the end of the day? Only some of that stays. So these traditions and practices and even these sublime philosophies are ways of helping the mind also change its ways of conceptualizing reality and seeing how much of it is just its conditioned perspective, that it's inherited from family, culture, religions, politics, everything. So that's why the yogi is one who leaves all that behind. Even if it's in their own regular house and household or sadhana like we do, and sits and shifts attention, we're letting it go. We're leaving the ordinary way of being and seeing behind to come home to, oh, that's right. This is the truth of who I am. This is what's really going on. So the Pratyabhijnahrdayam makes it very clear that it's Chit Shakti who becomes the individual. Literally says, the universal consciousness, because of contraction, becomes an ordinary being subject to limitations. You, me, all ordinary beings, from a paramecium, amoeba, on up, everything, even inanimate objects, becomes everything. There's no other place, other creation, other creator going on. There's just the creator creating. There's no place, nothing to take something from to create. Creates of its own nature, which is Shakti, is power, is energy, is throb, is vibration. That's what the whole Spandakarika is about. Spandakarika is in this tradition of talking about the throb, the vibratory reality of the energy that takes all the forms. And then we find ourselves very close to what some of the physicists have approached through quantum physics and quantum mechanics, and the energy that all there is energy. That's what Einstein was talking about. There is only energy. It seems to be manifested as matter. Matter is just a density and a slowness to the energy that makes it look like it has a stable form. But in the end, it's still just energy. Well, that's what we are. We're just energy. Our attention is energy. This is a play of that energy. a play of that energy, assuming forms, dissolving forms, creating new forms, dissolving those forms. And those processes, they're also described both in the Shiva Sutras and then again here in the Pratyabhijnahrdayam, where it says, even in that state of contracted limitation as an individualized being, even in that state, he, Shiva, and the individual, the embodied soul, the limited being, performs the 5 functions of Shiva. So the auspicious one. So it's another way of the mind trying to get a hold of, okay, there's this infinite, undifferentiated power. The mind has a really hard time with undifferentiated things. It needs things differentiated because that's the nature of the mind. So it can say, okay, that infinite expanse of power, of Shakti, of energy, that we call Shiva Shakti, it seems to be always doing this dance of 5 things. It's the dance of creation, right? It creates. It sustains. Oh, so it has the power to sustain. It has the power to dissolve, right? It has the power to dissolve all the forms it creates. It has the power to conceal them and to conceal its nature. And it has the power to reveal the truth of what is. Those 5 powers that are what manifests the entirety of the universe, they're also the very nature of mind. The mind is a spark of the infinite and can't help but also reflect the 5 powers of the infinite. But now in finite form, in contracted, limited form. So the mind, we create a thought. We create countless thoughts. We create thoughts, feelings, emotions, all kinds of things. We can sustain them however long we want by giving them attention. Attention is the energy that it takes to sustain things, right? So we can sustain them. We can forget about them. So that's like concealment. Or we can really dissolve them and be done with that thought, done with that creation, done with that thing we made. But we can also, if we've concealed it, well, we can bring it back to mind and reveal it again. So even as one is sitting and meditating, and say the mind is really busy. So one of the classic meditative practices that helps shift attention from soul identification with the mind to looking at the mind, because as soon as you step back and look at it, you've gotten a degree of freedom from the mind. So if while one is sitting and meditating, you meditate on those 5 processes. The 5 processes that your Shiva nature, your divine, sublime, infinite, boundless self is revealing just as the mind. You can see it. Oh, I created a thought. Oh, I think I'll sustain that for a while. Oh, I think I'll forget about it. Oh, I just dissolve it. I don't need to think about that in any way at all. It's not even true. No, then I destroyed it. Oh, I can bring it back to mind. If it was something I concealed, I can reveal it. You're always doing these things. But now, if you're looking at that process as that unfolding of the limited 5 powers of your infinite being, you've stepped back and now you're just watching the play of power. What's power? Chit Shakti. This is the play of Chit Shakti. This is the play of consciousness. This is what we can watch anytime. You don't have to do it eyes closed. You can do it even as you're sitting here listening to me. Your attention creates things, it sustains them, it conceals them, it reveals them. That is going on continuously. So that was one of the profound insights that the great sages came to by seeing that, oh, there's the infinite doing this on an infinite scale, and because it has become all that is, we can see it reflected in the finite scale of the ordinary mind. It's like a mirror shard, a little tiny broken piece of the mirror that reflects a little bit of the sun, but it's still the sun. It's still those same rays that came from the sun or what's bouncing off of that mirror. we can see the same rays of the boundless Shakti, the boundless consciousness, bouncing off the instrument of the mind, still carrying on these 5 functions. The function of creation, the function of sustaining, the function of dissolving, the function of concealing, the function of revealing. It's all going on. Now, the function of revelation is particularly important in sadhana, and the power of that fundamental level of revelation in the yogic tradition, meaning what's going to reveal the highest. The mind can reveal a thought that it tucked away in its memory or seemed to forget or repressed or whatever it might have done, and it can reveal that. That's ordinary sort of revelation. What the highest level of that, well, that's when we're talking about the revelation of our own nature. That's grace. That's what's referred to in the yogic tradition as Kundalini Shakti. Kundalini is the power of revelation and transformation. It's the power to reveal our infinite nature, because the one who concealed it was Shakti. It takes Shakti to reveal it. So the efforts of the mind then are to become attuned with that kind of revelation, become attuned to seeing that, oh, no, wait a minute, this is the unfolding of the infinite. This is the unfolding of the divine. All this world is that. So the mind can hold on to thoughts and ways of perceiving that. It can hold on to corollaries, like, oh, everyone is divine. All beings are divine. How do I relate with loving compassion for that divinity manifest before me? What do they need? What do all the beings on the earth need? They need to get free of pollution. We should do more about that. So we can have those kinds of perspectives inform our action and how we bring compassion, kindness, love into this world, because it's also congruent with the truth of who we are. It's also congruent with the fact that, for the infinite, when we say the infinite has this all-pervasive, all-knowing consciousness that is Shakti, that is Chit Shakti, right? And that knowing is suffused with loving. There's, for the infinite, for the divine, knowing and loving are one. Right? So it's hard for the mind to get, because the mind, in its dualistic state, very much sees knowing as one thing, loving as something else. But the truth is, even for the ordinary mind, what makes us most intimate, what makes us most knowing, what draws us most close to another being, it's a state of love. Because that's what opens the door to seeing both a person's divinity as well as seeing, what's their other nature of the ordinary qualities that they may have, but that they all arise from the one. So when we're kind of getting attuned to that, it transforms our vision, right? So that we can start to see through the eyes of our own divine self. Not just see through the eyes of the differentiating, conditioned mind. Because that just keeps seeing the patterns that it was conditioned to perceive the world, act in the world, react in the world, all those kinds of things. So the process of meditation and dialing into this really expansive view of the truth of who we are and the truth of what this reality is inviting us to let go of all that. So that when we step back in meditations, if we're just sitting and just watching the fivefold function of Shiva consciousness in our mind, and we're seeing, oh, there's creation, there's sustaining, there's dissolving, there's concealing, there's revealing, one after the other, one after. Now, instead of getting involved in the content, as if the content was what was real, as if the content was what was specific to the little me that got identified with the thoughts, the feelings, the stuff arising, we've stepped back. We've stepped back And in stepping back, we've created the spaciousness in which we can now have a greater sense of the spaciousness of awareness, the spaciousness of being awareness that allows us to see and see through the eyes of compassion, of love, to see the unity, that all I'm seeing is really my own self. That this is the transformation that these sublime practices and these highest non-dual traditions are aimed at empowering us to inhabit that and live that, walk that in the world. Yes, it's intermittent and occasional to begin with, and the more we're dedicated, the more we're giving our attention to that, saying, no, this is what I want. We go after that, and we do the practices, and we make use of these kinds of insights to inform us that, oh, when I'm getting really contracted and I'm getting, whatever it might be, I might be getting irritated, I might be getting overly anxious, I might be getting, the mind as the I, the little I mind, becoming this feeling, that thought, this agitation, these things. That we can step back and go, oh, this is consciousness, creating these forms. I can step back and look at that. And I can have an impact on what forms this instrument of the mind is creating by taking hold of another form that the Shakti provides us with to help free the mind. And that's mantra. Mantra is a throb of that consciousness. Mantra is not mind-born. It passes through the mind so that the mind can observe it, see it, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. That word form is Shakti in word form. But if we could really enter the vehicle of mantra, meaning become as identified with the throb of energy and consciousness that is mantra, as we are with this body, the roles that we play, think of how real we consider those things to be. That's how real we can make the experience of merging with mantra, of being identified with that awareness of I am that, the awareness of I am, aham, I am that, hum sa, I am Shiva, Shivo hum. You can see the mantras really convey the power of the consciousness of that perceptual standpoint. They're inviting us to know your Shiva nature by becoming Shiva. Know yourself as Shakti because you've identified with Shakti. To become identified with Shakti, we have to say, I'm not just the mind. I'm not just the body. Become identified with Shiva. I'm not just the mind. I'm not just the body. There's this magnificent infinitude of spaciousness, of being awareness. That's the essence of who I am. That's what I inhabit, know, walk into the world, and then walk those qualities, the sublime consciousness, the sublime loving awareness that goes with that consciousness. That's what we're then empowered to live into the world. So when we're studying something like the Pratyabhijnahrdayam, or studying the Shiva Sutras, or any of these great texts, or like the Heart Sutra from the Tibet, from the Buddhist tradition, they're all pointing to what's our nature beyond mind. Because that's where we find the true freedom from suffering. See, we want to be free from suffering. All beings want to be free from suffering. That's what we come home to, right? And the way to do that is to get free of the identification with the instrument that identification creates suffering out of. So that's why, whether it's Buddha talking about it, whether it's the great Kashmir Shaivite sages, whether it's Shiva himself speaking through the Shiva Sutras, it's the bliss of the self, Ananda, that rapturous, ecstatic awareness. That's your true nature. It's hinted at, again, limited forms is what the limited mind gets. So it gets limited experiences of rapture and joy. It gets limited experiences of love. It gets limited experiences of compassion. That's because it hasn't drowned in the infinite ocean of those qualities. That's what we're summoned to. That's what our own evolutionary process, you know, this kind of process of ripening that unfolds across lifetimes, and that includes this awakening of the power to know the infinite as ourself, that we call Kundalini in the yogic tradition. That springs to life at the time when we're finally ready to say, yes, that's what, I've had enough of exploring the world and all these things. I've spent lifetimes doing that. All the suffering, all the limited pleasures, joys, everything, done, gone. Let me know the one. Let me live from that. Let me bring the sublime and all-embracing love and consciousness of that into this world. That becomes why we're alive, why we breathe, why we practice, why everything becomes a practice. Whether we're householders and it's our relationships and our work and everything else, whether it's doing a solitary practice of meditation or mantra or chant, it's all aimed at every moment. I want to know that. I want to live from that. I want to see that in your eyes, in your countenance, in your being. That's what we're invited to know. And we've seen it over and over again across thousands of years of the various great sages and saints and unknown sages and saints, because there are more unknown than known, who live that experience into the world and continue to inspire and make it clear this is doable. We can do this. All these great beings, they're just humans, right? They came to know their divine nature through their human form and all the vagaries and forms of suffering and limited pleasures and attractions and things that it gets caught in. They move through all of that to come to know this highest and live that into the world. That's what we're invited to. So as a part of that, what we're going to do now is then just chant. We're going to chant the mantra Om Namah Shivaya. And we're going to chant for a few minutes and then just sit in the stillness and watch. Watch. If you want to watch with your eyes open, watch with your eyes open. If you want to watch with your eyes closed, watch with your eyes closed. Because the play of Shiva's 5 powers, well, that's unrelated to the senses. There's just different material it works off of. But we want to see that oneness. Now it's easier, typically, for most people to let go of the attraction to the outer world. In the waking state, it said that the visual sense is what dominates, and that the grasping mind operates. It's trying to take hold of sensory data and information. When you close your eyes, you see it does that with the other senses. It goes after a sound, a sensation, something, movement. So we still watch that. We still watch the nature of the mind, but we watch it now as, oh, that's the delightful play of Shiva and Shakti, creating this dance that we can now step back from and just watch. Oh, it's just the mind. It's part of the divine's creation. Oh, it spins here, it spins there, it gets caught in this, it gets free of that, and it momentarily enjoys this, and then it momentarily suffers over that. That's what it's doing. I'm just watching. Where am I watching from? Oh, I'm watching from the seat of aham. I am. I am. I am the witness. I am Shiva, Shakti, and the consciousness, watching the unfolding play of my own creative being. That's what we're invited to do. So we'll chant for a few minutes and then just sit and watch. Just watch. Keep letting go. You'll see. You'll watch and see how consciousness got very caught in a thought, a feeling, a memory, a mood, a role, some form of identification. That's concealment. When you see you've concealed your true nature by getting overly identified, you go, oh, it's time for revelation. I'm not that. I'm all of this. Now you've bestowed grace on yourself. And now you've revealed more of your true nature. Oh, another thought came along. You got contracted, caught it. Oh, that's okay. That's That's concealment, right? That's that identification. Oh, I can reveal myself. I can let it go. That's what we start to see as part of the play unfolding in this, field of consciousness, in the sky, the inner sky of consciousness. That's what we're watching. So we'll chant for a few minutes and then just sit in that stillness. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Shivaya Namah Om. Shivaya Namah Om. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Shivaya Namah Om. Shivaya Namah Om. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Shivaya Namah Om. Shivaya Namah Om. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Shivaya Namah Om. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Shivaya Namah Om. Shivaya Namah Om. Just watching. You're already Shiva. You're already Shakti. And just watching. Watching thoughts come and go. The inner sky of awareness. Thoughts that are just contracted forms of Shakti. Just plays of energy dancing through the sky of awareness. Some are thoughts, some are feelings, some are memories, some are sensations. You're Shiva Shakti, you're just watching. Watching with delight, watching yourself unfold the play of creation on your own screen of awareness. You do it without awareness of I am that, of I am Shiva, Shivoham. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. We end with this prayer that may all our practices truly benefit everyone, and may all beings know complete freedom from suffering. And namaste. Om Namah Shivaya. Bow to the infinite, your own self. So it also as a mantra, it establishes the right relationship of the mind to your highest self, your divine nature. Approach it with reverence, respect, obedience, surrender. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. And then keep bestowing grace on yourself. Allowing yourself to see that, the pain, the suffering, it comes from putting on a cloak, putting on a veil, concealing the truth of who you are. So the antidote is revelation. Oh, wait a minute. I'm that. I am that. Shivoham, Shivoham, Aham, Hamsa, Buddhoham. That's your nature. So we have to bestow grace on ourselves in that way, by disidentifying, by shedding the cloaks, the concealments, the layers that give birth to that suffering, that pain. Come back to the truth of who you are. And that'll help to relieve the poor mind and body from the burdens that they carry. So thank you all for coming this evening and bringing your sublime Shiva nature and your commitment to practices, and being ones who then take these highest truths and walk them into your everyday lives. That's what sadhana in this age is about. Living in the world, living with the truth, living the highest into everyday relationships, so we can transform the whole world by walking that truth, inhabiting that truth, imbibing that truth, living that truth. So thank you for being ones who do that. And I look forward to seeing you again in a couple of weeks. That'll be the first Thursday in May. So with all my heart, with all my love, thank you for coming.